present.
Okay, we'll call this meeting to order. We got 4 out of 5 members here tonight, so we got a quorum. This is December 20th, Monday, 2021, International Falls Economic Development Authority. And with 4 out of 5, we're ready to go. So then we'll go to number 3, audience. Anybody got anything they want to say here from the audience? If not, we'll move on to new business, which is Cooch County Museum funding request for roof repair. And we have Ashley Levine here, and I'd like to have you come up to the mic and maybe give a little presentation again so we know where we're at.
So the museum roof has been leaking for, since the summertime. We had some leaks in a couple of different areas. We had the leak that was coming in through the video room, which was in Bronco. And then we also had the leak that was happening in the back part of the building. And the leaks were pretty substantial. They were coming in down the walls and then through both areas of the air units. We had a company come in and check those air units out to make sure that the water was not coming in as a result of a leak through those air units on the rooftop. And it was actually coming in from the roof, but it was leaking in from an area around there. There were some puncture holes up there for whatever reason, and we don't know how they got there. They just are there. And we found that out when we had one of the contractors that came up. It was Nelson Roofing from Hitting that came up to look at that, and they were the ones that found those holes. They had recommended that we replace our roof fully because all of the insulation and everything was so deteriorated. It is starting to sink and cause a lot of standing water to be up on the roof. The metal flashing also needs to be replaced along the edges. I mean, even if you drive by, you can see the wall that faces the Sheeter building at PCA. You can see some of that metal flashing is kind of starting to lift up. It's just old and tired. The museum in the past, when we replaced that roof, we were always replacing the roof in sections, which wasn't the best method, I think, of replacing the roof. It was better to do it all at one time, but we couldn't afford to do the roof all at once. We also did not replace the insulation or the metal flashing. We only replaced any metal flashing if it absolutely needed to be. So we just tried to reduce reuse as much as we could just to save that money and be as fiscally responsible as we could. And that worked for a really long time. I mean, well over 20 years. And got as much life out of the roof as we possibly could. But now it's just coming to a point where the insides are so deteriorated that it just wants to be redone. So when they redo the roof, they will give it a 1/4-inch slope so the water properly drains to the roof drainage, to all the scupper drains, and then there's another roof drain up there that it'll go to as well. So it'll drain off of the back of the building that faces the training center of PCA, and then also to the pavilion where the beer gardens and stuff are. So that's basically what will happen.
Okay, and can you kind of give us the total cost figure?
So right now, the total cost is $143,777. We unfortunately can't be locked into this price just because of the material shortage with the roofing supplies and stuff like that. So our final price will be determined when those materials actually come in. So he said that we could look at like maybe 10 to 20%. Potentially, that it could go up, but I mean, we're prepared to make up the difference.
Okay, and then can you tell us when they thought they could do it?
Right now, he hoped that he could get us done sometime in the fall, so probably like September, October, just because their schedule is so busy, and then also that's going to be dependent on when materials can come in. This company is also the one that did the Cobblestone Hotel, and it took them about 8 or 9 months, I think, to get their materials in from the time that they ordered. So it's just sort of dependent on that and what their scheduled timeline is. We did have Nelson, after they had come up to find out where the issues were in our roof, they did fix those leaks, and they're holding for now, but I mean, the roof still will need to be replaced because we're just going to continue to have leaking problems.
Okay. So you're gonna be okay, more than likely with the patches until they can come up and the one that you pick to do the job, when they come up, they'll probably be okay till then.
Yeah, and they did tell us that if we have any issues in like the interim, that they would come up and help us
Okay.
fix those issues.
Sure.
Because they had checked on us periodically after they fixed those problems that we were having, because there was just so much water coming in the building. I mean, we were carrying out tons of 5-gallon buckets repeatedly. Even though we didn't get a lot of rain last summer, when we were getting the rain, just because of that building, the surface area of how large the building is, and it just being a big flat, it's just a collection pool. And then all that water had to go somewhere. So they checked on us, I would say probably 3 or 4 times. I had emails with Paul, his name's Paul Rasmussen, and he's the project manager there. And so they said that if we had more problems, just to call them, and they would come back.
Okay. Does anybody on this board have any questions for Ashley besides the ones I've asked? Go ahead, Harley.
When you became the director over at the museum, did you think you'd become an expert in roofs, roof repair, and such things?
No, not really. I didn't know that I would be dealing with, well, I mean, I knew eventually I'd have to deal with some contractors, but I have learned a lot about the architecture of that building and structural soundness of buildings.
I completely understand. It's always amazing to me when you take a position in a job or a career, and you start off with what you think you're going to do, and then it balloons to what it actually is. And this is, I think, the fourth time that we've had a discussion on this, so I know that you've been doing your due diligence to try to make sure that that roof is fixed, so that's all I have.
Okay. Walt, do you have anything?
Have you got any other numbers from any other contractors, just Gilson, or is there any other contractor?
I had one contractor come from Cotton, and they had come to look at the building, and I've asked them for an estimate or some kind of paperwork, and I don't know why they never got back to me. I don't know if just their workload was so busy, because they did say that they were extraordinarily busy with work. So it sort of seemed like a waste for them to drive all the way here and then not give me anything. And then with local contractors, either no one could do our style of roof, or everyone was too busy. Up North Builders did give me a call 4 months after I had called them in the summer, and then they just never showed up. So I did try to work with local people first before going elsewhere, but I just wasn't getting the response that we needed, especially at the time when it was becoming a real emergency to get someone to come in and at least put a patch on the roof.
Leon, you got any?
I see a county commissioner came in. Where's the county standing on this?
So when we met with the county, there was a couple of county commissioners that we met with the mayor, and the county had seemed supportive. They had been willing to help us, and my last conversation with the county administration was that the county commissioners have been willing to put out around $40,000 to help us.
How much?
40. That was what I was told from the county administrator.
And then you have some money that you
Yes,
can...
we have $35,000 roughly to bring to the table right now. And we
Okay.
have a semi-formal gala event that is planned for June 2nd. It will be a fundraiser.
Where is that fundraiser at?
It's going to be held at the Thunderbird.
Any more questions for Ashley?
Commissioner has something to add?
Commissioner, do you have anything you'd like to say? Terry?
I would just like to hope that the city council will help out on this too. I realized it's kind of a work done. I know that maybe budget-wise it wasn't done as soon as it should have been. I've heard different things, but the big thing is that it needs to be done. We were finding the money from somewhere, we definitely didn't have it sitting there for it. And like that, I'll speak for Wade, who was with me at that meeting. He says he's in favor of it, but he feels the city and us have like a joint responsibility in this, because it's kind of our, you know, the question is who owns it, but really the question is who wants it, who needs it, and that's our whole community, probably more the city than anything, but the county feels that's important. Personally, it feels important because I know some of the people that are in there, you know, that people go and see, including Bronco University. It's kids I know well. Bronco, I remember when I was 11, believe it or not, I'm that old. It's just, I think it's something we do not want. It's not something where you can just let it go for years, few years, and then fix it, because there's so much stuff in there that can get moved for another reason. I just think we just have to do something. I got really convinced to go for it.
Okay, well, thank you. I took a tour of the place today after I left the KEDA, and I was impressed with the concern of the two people that worked there, you know, and what they did to save stuff there. And all that water was coming in the old part there. I mean, they had to hustle and get stuff moved, and, you know, and so and then they worked hard to get the attendance up on that place. I mean, the attendance has been, from what I've heard, is record-breaking attendance. Even though the pandemic was on, they had record-breaking attendance. So that's, you know, they're doing their job, promoting it and everything. So I'd like to hear a motion. Okay, Betty, yeah.
If I may, do you guys going forward have a capital plan to put money aside for future replacements like this? Building repairs, major repairs, you know, capital repairs?
So in the past, it had always just been budgeted. So like when the former director was there, it was always just budgeted repairs. We would have X amount of dollars set out every year for any repairs, whether it's furnace repairs, building maintenance, like we knew that those things were coming up. So when the building needs to be painted, when the roof needs to be done, those chunks of money are set aside. But now that this roof needs to just be replaced all at once, our plan moving forward is that there has to be some type of money that gets set aside yearly into an account, like a project account, where this is specifically just for a future replacement of a roof or something that's going to be incredibly expensive that comes out all at once. Because doing it the old way has put us in an incredibly difficult position that, in my opinion, just isn't extraordinarily fiscally responsible. I mean, there's been other things that have happened along the way that have been able to be managed that way, but something like this is not able to be managed like that. So, yes, the plan is that moving forward, there will need to be a project account for big projects like this, especially with the age of the building. I mean, the original part of that building was opened in 1963. The back annex was built in 1973 or 74, and then Bronco was opened in 93. So, I mean, we have three different sections of building globbed together, and they're all deteriorating at different rates, you know, because they're all different ages, and they all have different needs. So, yes.
Good to hear, because that's what, you know, we as, you know, when we're giving our, you know, allocation each year, that's what we, you know, we as, you know, need to understand if you're, you know, doing those things, so, you know, you don't have to do this and come back and say, I need this now, you know, if you were doing those, and if you're needing things like that, it's better to come during a, you know, appropriation time and different things and say, hey, this is coming up, we're going to need this, or, you know, any chance you can help with that, or, you know, specific projects, but, you know, just understanding that you do have those in place is good to hear. Thank you.
Approximately how many people went through in 2021?
Over the last year, we have had now almost 2,000 people come through.
And most of these are tourists out of town, I would imagine.
It's a mixture, but I would say probably 75% are, yes, out-of-town people, tourists. We get a lot of people from the Capitolina area, when, they can't fish or something like that. We get those people coming in, but we do have some partnerships with some of the resorts out there, advertising, and so they send a lot of people into us anyways. So yeah, that's pretty much what we've been getting, lots of tourists.
And how about membership? What kind of numbers do you have for membership?
Roughly, so of like up-to-date, active, paid through as of last month, there was roughly like 85.
Two more today.
Yeah, now you can say there's 86, and then a potential 87th with his donation. That's just up to date.
88 for me, too.
Yeah, so paid up to date, but if you count, we give a pretty generous window for people who pay memberships, so it's anywhere between 85 to maybe 95.
We also have lifetime memberships, and all of the lifetime memberships, we don't offer them anymore.
Oh.
Yeah.
These were offered a long time ago, in the late 80s, early 90s, and those life memberships are still honored. So when Ed came on board, he tried to move a lot of those life memberships into recurring memberships, because you could buy a life membership in 1990 for $20. And it's not, that was not a good way to secure continuing memberships. There just wasn't a good benefit for the museum there. It was a good way to raise a lot of money in a short time, but it wasn't a good sustaining income. So some of those life memberships did convert over, but I'm not sure how many life memberships are left. I would say probably a couple hundred.
And yeah, that's not included because our new software only counts the yearly payments.
Is your membership a set fee, or is there different levels?
We have different tiers of membership. They start out at individual memberships that are $20, you have family memberships, and then it goes up from there.
Any more questions, Harvey?
I have one. I very, very, very briefly talked to Corey and Ashley before the meeting on the options that were laid out for us. The first option was to deny the request for funding, and I don't think that this board is going to do that. The second one was to consider a $40,000 loan and a payment reschedule of $4,000 from the annual allotment for 10 years, so the city ultimately would get all of the money back. The third one would be to give $40,000 and forgive $20,000 if we got a repayment of $20,000 over the next 5 years, and consider funding the $40,000 with no repayment. In the brief conversation, Ashley said that the one that they would be looking for, unless we were to consider funding it with no repayment, would be option number 3, to commit $40,000 loan to forgive $20,000 and repay the last $20,000. That was really wordy, and I didn't expect it to be. So how, with some of the fundraising that you guys are doing, I know you're looking at fundraising so that you can come up with some portion for the museum's money. How would you guys be able to fundraise to be able to pay $20,000 back over 5 years, or is that a little bit much?
Yeah, no, we'd be able to do that.
Okay. All right, that's all I have.
Okay, so I think we're all in agreement, we're not going to deny them. So I'd like to see a motion on how we're going to help them.
I would make a motion to commit a $40,000 loan and forgive $20,000 if they repay $20,000 over the next 5 years. And I would also recommend to the city council to have the permit fees, the building permit fees waived.
Question on your motion? Yes. If they don't make the $20,000, how long are they expected to go with the $40,000?
We should have a second before we have that conversation. We should have a second before we have that conversation.
Okay, I'll second.
Okay, now we can have discussion.
Okay, same question.
I don't know how would we handle that? How was it handled with, well, we'll backtrack just a little bit. So there's two things historically that the city has done, whether it was the EDA or the city. The first was with the Borderland Humane Society when they needed additional funds for the overrun of the project out there. There was $60,000 that was split between the city and the county, and as they moved forward, they paid those funds back over time to the city and county to make them whole. The other option, which would have been the $40,000 repayment, was what we did with the senior center, as they needed their furnaces and such replaced. We just take $2,000 back to pay that fee back. I guess I don't know the answer of what happens if we take away their birthdays or their Bronco Nagurski bobbleheads, but I don't know what we do in the event that they don't pay. Can you help us on that?
Well, I mean, in the previous one that you had mentioned, it just says they have the right to forgive all or a portion of the loans. So at that point in time, depending on their financial status, it's something that this board could decide at that time.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that's kind of how I was looking at it. I just didn't know if there was something above my pay grade, but that's how I would look at it. If they were not able to pay back, we have another conversation.
we'd have another conversation and
Yeah.
probably forgive it or whatever, but,
Don't be talking like
no,
that.
I know, but, whatever.
You too, Commissioner. Don't you even be
Look at him
smiling and
smile back
giggling
there.
in the back.
But I think that's,
I'll be here 5 years from now, too.
Yeah, you'll be here in 5 years.
so, any more discussion on this?
And I guess I would just want to make sure that you guys get a locked-in price at some point. I mean, we're willing to commit the $40,000 up front, but I'd really like to see a locked-in price before we write the check to the museum or to the contractor, however that works. But just to make sure that we know that there's not going to be many overruns. Obviously, there will be something, but we just want to, I would just hope that we get that locked in before we write a check.
All right, any more discussion? Okay, we got a motion by Harley, we got a second by Leon. A vote, Leon?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. It passes unanimous, 4-0.
Thank you.
That's all that's on the agenda tonight for this meeting that I see.
Can I add one thing?
Yeah.
Betty, will it be a problem? We're just going to add on that permit waiving for tonight's meeting as an addition? Would that be an issue, or should we just,
On what agenda?
the city council agenda for this evening? We just had a motion that we would waive the permit fees, or can we just wait on that until
I think you wait
January?
on that until you have the exact amounts from them, and what, exactly a detail of what because you don't even know what that permit fee is going to look like at this time, and you can, address that at the time
I
you
just want
have
to get it
what
all
it's
done so we don't have to
calculated
deal
at.
with anything ever again.
No, I'm sorry, we'll have to address it again,
Okay.
but we can handle it very easily.
Okay, thank you for coming. Yep,
Thank you.
thanks for coming, everybody, yeah.
We have a person in audience.
Oh, you got
that would like to
something you
talk.
want?
I just wondered if you guys could kind of talk about something else. I drove all the way from South Falls now, just for
What, you want to talk deer hunting or something, or what?
Stick around, we got a meeting at 5:30, just stick around.
I adjourn this meeting. We're gonna go on to the next meeting.